So good morning, everyone. Today is August 2nd, 2019. The time is 9:01 a.m. We're meeting for a special meeting, final balanced budget presentation. I am officially calling this meeting to order. Attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. And so we'll just proceed, and I will turn it over to Dina Darrow, our Finance Director. By the way, do we have any changes to the agenda? I don't hear of any, so let's see, we have a couple items. The first one is the auditor presentation of tentative balanced budget for BOCC review, general discussion. And thank you for indicating that, Dina, because every decision we've made thus far is in fact tentative until the actual budget hearing on August 29th. So take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will hand off the floor to my boss, Jim Brannon.
Thank you, Commissioners. In accordance with statute, you are being presented a balanced budget for your review today. And as indicated, anything you have made thus far is just a tentative decision. We're hoping to get final so that we can move forward with our fiscal year 20 budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Brannon. Dina, go right ahead.
All right, I'm going to plug us back in. So we have the screen. So what you have in front of you and what I left out on the desk there is I did an executive summary to just give you the highlights. So we all know that we started out back in March with a $19 million deficit. So a lot of work has been done. A lot of cuts have been made. Everybody has pulled together to help the employees. So these are your highlights, just in a very simple format. That's your property tax number. Last year's base was $47,724,669. There's a 3% increase proposed. That's 1.4. New construction, that most recent number from the assessor is 1.19. And our property tax replacement, which revolves every year, that's an adjustment from the state, so that takes a little bit out there. So our total property tax number right now is $49,939,200, and it's kind of funny, it just rounded right to it, right to an even number. So that's what we're looking at right now. Your major increases, personnel. Out of all the positions that were asked for, 7 made the cut. That's 382,572 loaded. We also have overtime, service awards, holiday buyback, and on-call. That rounds up to 355,518, that's loaded. We also had some temp positions. We're continuing the scanning of documents for Odyssey, so we're continuing on with those 4 temps, and elections has a temp scheduled for the presidential election. So those are 147, 490, and 5410 respectively. The board has tentatively decided to implement the wage study as presented for $1.7 million for 9 months. Medical, oh my goodness. Our medical, the employer's portion of the medical increase, $454,216, and then our Percy rate went up, and the employer's portion of that is $238,641. So those are the items that make up the increases for the personnel budget. And then just some other highlights. These are the big drivers. We've got $8.2 million in capital projects, the biggest of which is the new building on the campus, $4.5 million. Sheriff's fleet with multiple vehicles, $700,000 for this year, but that would be a 3-year item, $700,000 each year. Various IT projects, 911 and E911, and an election systems upgrade. Solid waste projects are self-funded. They come in at 2.6, and a lot of this was made possible. I wanted to note that all departments made major cuts in their B budget, and overall as a county, we cut our B budget by almost $300,000 year over year. So kudos to all the departments for pitching in to help support the wage study. Our fund balance use is our fund balance after fund balance use is 6.9 million. That's what's left in our fund balance for right now. So, any questions, comments on these items?
For the benefit of the group, Dina, if you wouldn't mind going back one slide. It's a simple question, actually.
Yeah.
Your overview.
Yeah.
Just explain for everybody's benefit how you calculate the new construction component.
I have a
There you
document
go.
for that. So anticipating that question, I got lucky. Thanks, Chris.
You're very welcome.
So this is how we calculate property tax. So for all non-math nerds, I'm going to walk you through this. It's kind of cool. So when we do tax, we look at the last 3 years, and we are able by statute to take 3% of the highest of the last 3 years. So here's the last 3 years. Last year was our highest, so we just scooch that one right over there. And then we say, okay, the highest of 3 years times 3%, so that gives us our 3% number, all right? New construction value. So our assessor gave us the new construction value mid-July. That's our most recent number and our final number there. To calculate the new construction piece of this, we take last year's levy rate. So this is our new construction times last year's levy rate. That gives us that, the new construction piece. You add those two together, that's your new stuff. This is the other stuff we don't talk about. So your total taxing authority, legally, your total taxing authority, yes, Bill's smiling over there. 11.7 million, that's what's available to us legally. Then we adjust for that property tax replacement. And that's our total taxing authority. So, let's scooch down here. So, we adjust this for the property tax replacement, and this is our total tax. And then we squeeze out that part we don't want to use. So basically it's these three numbers, but this is the one we're going with. The full 3% plus the new construction value.
So the addition is the 2.6 million.
Yes.
Figure that there. There you
Yep,
go.
that's the magic number right here.
Thank you.
You betcha. All right, so I have some other documents here. Let's see. This one is fun. And we will be talking about maybe making a reporting change on this. It's just a housekeeping item. It doesn't change the amount at all. We did some research and we looked at other counties in Idaho. For some reason, and it may have been way back in the past when we were building the Fighting Creek landfill, we decided to pull out solid waste construction from just the total solid waste line. And it's not required. And now we have construction kind of mixed in our org sets. We pull by org set, a lot of technical stuff. But basically, the separation is kind of arbitrary. It doesn't really reflect all construction costs. So what we would like to do is just smush that all together into one line.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no reporting need for it. So this line would change and it would all be under this waste disposal line. So I'm gonna walk you through this because this is kind of confusing, but this particular
Go
schedule
right ahead.
will be in your packet at the public hearing. But this kind of explains how the county's taxes work. So take a deep breath. It's kind of a lot of stuff, but basically I'll try to break it down and make it as understandable as possible. So this number up here, that's our new market value. Look at how much that's grown. Over $2 billion. We've hit that $20 billion mark of property value in the county. That's enormous. So I'm gonna walk you through how we get from the left to the right here. So the preliminary budget, this is our spending. This is our budget. This is our total budget here. It's 101, 935, 717. That's your total budget right now.
For fiscal 20.
For fiscal 20, that's your budget. You broke 100.
635.
635.
639. Blind. Okay. So this column matches your public hearing document. And it tells you for all of these reporting lines what we're spending. Now this spending is funded by a variety of funding sources. So basically this is our preliminary summary kind of flipped on its axis. So the first column here is fund balance. So this shows just by classification when we net all the fund balance used together, how much is fund balance. In the areas where it's negative, that means that there was less fund balance used. So say in the justice fund, we have to balance revenue to expenses in those restricted funds. So there may be a point where their expenses are less than the revenue they're bringing in. That builds their fund balance. So anywhere you see a negative in here, that's building fund balance, and it's driven by those restricted funds. So this is our fund balance used for the major funds, and then this section here is non-levy funds. So that's the fund balance use there for a total fund balance use down here. So you can see the components in these two sections.
Dina, why
Yeah.
is Centennial Trail 6,500? Shouldn't it be 10,000?
It is 10,000, but we have, there's more, they have more revenue than expenses, and we have to balance it.
Okay.
So we're building
Okay.
fund balance by that much. We still brought that 10,000 over, but it just builds their fund balance.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right, everybody still with me? Okay. So interfund transfers. These are basically made up of money that moves around between funds. So we moved $10,000 from the general fund to the Centennial Trail. We moved money from solid waste into some of the general fund funds because they pay the general fund for certain services that we provide, like accounting services from auditors, so on and so forth. So there are a few transactions in here mainly driven by solid waste. State funds and other revenue. This is the bucket of all the other stuff. All the money that comes in, all the non-tax revenues, the state liquor tax and lottery money and sales tax and all that stuff, all gets lumped into this column here. And then finally, we take all of your budget expenses and subtract and say, okay, first we'll pay here, we'll pay with this money, then we'll pay with this money, and then we get to the balance to be levied. So whatever's left to pay, that's your tax. So by fund, this shows what piece of this total tax levy each fund represents. And then this is just an arithmetic, what the levy rate is for each fund by fund. So you can see 2020 to 2019, in almost every line, that levy rate's going down. An average over all funds, almost a 12% decrease in the levy rate.
That's good news.
Yeah. And I believe I have another sheet, but I can put that as part of our presentation at the end of the month. But actually, I think the number is $23 per 100,000 decrease for the county's taxes.
That's interesting.
But it's because we grew so much. Our
So we're
pool
spreading
is
it
so
across a
big. We're
wider
spreading
base.
it across more people. However, if your property valuation went up, your
That's
per
the key.
100 is gonna go up. Your taxes in general are gonna go up. But for each 100,000, that amount goes down. So net increase probably, but decreased by that levy
By
rate
the levy
going
rate.
down. So we can explain kind of how that works at the public hearing to try to
Yeah,
help
please.
because it's very confusing. But we're looking really good. I mean, it's pretty amazing that our levy rate dropped by this much. So you should feel good about that. So here, this little panel basically just summarizes what we talked through on that other schedule about how we calculate last year, this year, the growth, and 3%, and then how we calculate it all down. So that's our tax number. Any questions? This shows our total budget down here, and then we add in ambulance afterwards. And then our internal service fund, how that works. I know for those who have been in business, sometimes you have intercompany transactions where you're basically, it's the same money, you're just changing pockets. So this internal service fund is part of the general fund, but we call it out for reporting purposes. It actually lives up in here.
Ambulance district being EMS?
EMS, yes. And they have their own separate levies, so we hold them out
Right.
separately. So, questions, comments? Make sense?
Well done,
No?
nicely done.
Just the whole, this is our process. So now, I can just show you this. This is what we're used to looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So this number up here should look familiar. That's our tax number from the schedules that I just showed you. Our non-property tax revenue, here's our fund balance use. Here's our starting personnel number and our starting operations number. This is what we added to personnel. Pretty small considering the first ask. This is our net decrease, almost $300,000 in operating.
In operating budget?
Yes.
Mhm.
New programs, which is part of capital for the most part.
Mhm.
And then the wage study number, Percy, health insurance, and ta-da, happy green zeros at the bottom.
Mhm.
Hallelujah. So, a couple little things down here. I can send this spreadsheet to you if you just want to have it for reference.
Mhm.
I did some little calculations down here just for my own sanity checks. So, here's your current assigned fund balance, here's the fund balance use, and that's how I came up with that ending fund balance number.
Mhm.
This was just my balancing to the schedules that I showed you before. I was off $1 for rounding, not too shabby. And then this just shows the wage study calculation here. Full wage study, partial wage study. And then our adjustment that we did from the meeting where we did a little different thing. I have that documented here. So I can send this to you just so you have it for reference, just to kind of see the road to here.
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
the budget process is a huge process, and I wanted to say too on the record, I sent out an agenda yesterday, invited everybody to a Monday meeting, and apparently I didn't hit save enough or something happened, so when I changed the agenda, it didn't actually stick, so I resent that agenda with a proper time and date on it. So we'll talk about budget process, but this is a huge process, and it's a cast of thousands, and we learned a ton. And all the groups really participated this year, and I think as a team sport, I think it went a lot better, just from where we were sitting, I think it went a lot better. So, any questions or comments on this?
Mhm.
No?
Keep
Okay.
going.
Oh. All right, so this is what we're all here for. This is what's going in the newspaper. So this basically summarizes everything we just went through. This is what you'll see published in the Quarterly Press twice. Again, we'll just smush these two lines together from a reporting standpoint, but basically it's the same deal. But this schedule basically breaks out everything we just talked through. This will give you have your major funds on top. Then you have your justice funds, and then your other funds, those non-major funds. And then it gives you a total for governmental funds. Then we add in solid waste. And that internal service fund, the health insurance. And then the ambulance district at the bottom. Notice that familiar number there?
Yeah.
101, 635. And then it appears again down here. So this is some summary information. So there's your property tax again, your estimated fund balance use, other revenue, and grants that we're actually using and budgeting for. Those are the grants where we've got people. So we count that grant money for the people that we already have hired because we know that we'll get that money. So that goes into the budget, but there'll be a lot more grant money at the tail end. But this is just the grants portion. It's very small at the outset of the budget. And then that's our total budget number. In here, we spell out the ambulance district and show other revenues besides property tax that they give us. They just had their hearing on the 1st, so we were able to plug those numbers in. And then this just shows a breakdown of the health insurance, of what the county pays and what the employees pay. And that is your public hearing document. So if there were no changes today, we would send this proof to the press. And that's our next step.
And when is it due to the press?
I would send a proof out probably Monday, and then we would publish the following week, and then the week after, and then we have a public hearing.
Okay, then the public hearing.
And the statute is, you can make changes, but the number can only go down. You can't increase the budget, you can only decrease it.
Once you're published.
Once you're published, yes. But today is the day. So if there's any changes you want to make, today is the day.
Okay, let's start with us. You're smiling, go ahead.
I might have one. Well, I have several, but only one that's probably gonna make a difference. I would like to see 87,000 come back towards the prescription program. And I had a conversation with Undersheriff yesterday and asked if they had any more wiggle room in their holiday buyback, overtime, personnel, open positions. And so I just would ask, would you guys be willing to
Help us out?
help us out? Yes, help us out.
You want me or do you want?
I'll speak to it, that's fine, you can jump in where you feel. Hey, I think that we don't really have it in the overtime or holiday buyback, we've taken some pretty good cuts there and whatnot. We don't have a crystal ball to see that, who we're gonna hire, what we're gonna hire, who's gonna leave, when's gonna leave. The possibility of having salary stuff up to $87,000, probably it could be there. The only thing is that if we have the opportunity to fill those, we're going to get the insurance of the board that you'll find the money somewhere to backfill that
Right.
aid budget down the road as we try to hire and fill those positions.
Right.
So
Dina, what would this mean in the accounting world? Is this gonna be you're gonna be able to just make this change
87,000.
kind of thing?
So we would work with Sylvia and make sure that we were moving things around. And so we would take the 87 out of the holiday buyback line.
I would take out salaries.
Okay, so would you want to freeze a position?
No, I have open positions now, and I will continue to have open positions, I know that. We won't fill them all between now and October.
Okay, so we would need to freeze one of those open positions.
Well, that won't.
We have to get a number somewhere.
You gotta get,
Right.
the money has to
Right.
come from somewhere.
Well, and Sheriff, the reason why I would just say holiday buyback is because you'd use salvage to pay that anyway. And so I understand the reporting and wanting to do it that way, but I would love to see those positions filled and with
So would
I know, so with the openings that are gonna happen in detention because of the patrol filling,
The transfers there,
yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I'm fine with that, just with the understanding that, we get to that point in time and we don't have the salary to do that holiday buyback, we will need the board to guarantee that we'll be made whole. You know, otherwise statutorily it could come out of my paycheck, and I don't wanna do that.
Right, but I think we'll be having conversations all throughout the year to make sure, you know, where you guys are at and all
Sure,
that,
I mean, that's
so.
something we monitor obviously all the time, so.
Right, so,
Leslie, just to be clear, that this $87,000, that's gonna pretty much help everybody get away from that core, whatever that.
yes, so,
Formulary.
yes. Yeah, it'll go back to our standard prescription, that we've had.
Before the increase, right?
Before the
That's gonna be a
increase.
help across the board for
Absolutely.
everybody.
Yes, it helps everybody in the county.
Absolutely.
I have a hard time with insurance companies telling me what my doctor can prescribe me,
Yeah.
so.
So, and then going forward, I think there's some things some education pieces that we could start throughout the county to potentially save in health, excuse me, down the road. But I think it's one of those things that's an education piece instead of, by the way, this is your new system. And to me, it's a lot to take with 50% dental, with the increase in both the single and family rates. So I appreciate you guys working with us and wanting to do that.
You know, one other thing, as per our conversation yesterday, so we were talking, I mean, in that arena, the holiday buyback, salary salvage, and there was a third.
Overtime.
Overtime.
But they are all married.
They're all intertwined, yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, again, going back to our conversation, we don't have a crystal ball like the sheriff said, but there's I think if not a possibility, maybe even a probability, there would be some left at the end of the year.
Right.
And just for the record, if we go in the hole, we just want to make sure that you guys will remember this conversation and keep us whole. Because it's
Absolutely.
just
Right.
paycheck.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yes.
to further our conversation, legitimate overtime is what we want to
Sure.
focus on and make sure that it's to do minimum staffing levels and
Absolutely.
that, so.
And Dina, my request would be to take it out of the jail ops, the holiday buyback, and if you're gonna take it out of any of them.
Okay, so this one?
Because that's where I'll have the openings, then we can backfill that with the salary salvage.
Yep.
And I did do a preliminary calculation yesterday, and you can still keep around 30,000 in that holiday buyback.
Yeah.
We won't have to take all of it.
Good.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
And there's some change in there, it's like 87,536 or some
Yeah.
off number,
You'll
so.
round it.
87,563 is what it's
563,
Mhm.
Yeah, we can make that.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
thank you.
all right, noted. Any other changes?
Did you speak with Sean?
Yes, and so,
Just for the record, Sean's under the weather, so he's not here today, but go ahead.
So, two things. Building and Grounds has some elevator stuff that needs to come forward in this budget. So I'm not sure if we just want to take it out of the 5,000 out of fund balance to keep us balanced, or if we need to cut something.
It's pretty immaterial. If
Right.
it's 5,000, that's pretty immaterial.
Right.
Usually what happens is if it's not budgeted, it would just come out of their maintenance or their 5-year plan money.
Right.
And then you would make them whole at the end of the year if they were running short. Then we could use contingency or
Okay.
another funding source. But for $5,000, that's not a real material. In a
Okay.
$100 million budget, it's pretty immaterial.
Okay. And then the only other issue would be the evidence at the jail. So,
Well, no, it's-
how-
The 70.
We had money set aside, I think, and Sean told us about 60,000.
Okay.
That need to be carried over into next year's.
right.
It was originally set aside for the remodel of the
Yes,
MCC building.
yes.
Once the building, 911 was built, we moved everything out, and that's for evidence processing.
Right, evidence processing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we just need to make sure that gets carried over.
Right.
But was that in assigned fund balance or was that actually in the budget?
I think it's a science fund balance.
Okay,
Then
so
it's
assigned
still
fund
there.
balance doesn't,
Yep.
it's not relevant here because it's just sitting in assigned fund balance.
Okay, we just want to make
Right.
sure it's.
But
on
it's
the record.
identified, I think that's.
Yeah, we just want to make
It's
sure it's on the record, it's
identified. Okay, all
identified
right.
and carried over for the
Yes.
next fiscal year.
Right. But if we're gonna spend it in 2020, shouldn't it actually be in there? So
Yeah.
I guess, Dina, it's an accounting
Is it-
thing, so.
Yeah.
So it
And
would
that
be
was
a new
Sean's.
addition to the budget.
Right, but it would just be coming out of fund balance, so we'd still be
Right,
at
but
zero.
we would have to add it to the budget.
Okay,
And,
and we're 100% sure it will be spent in 2020?
Well, that's a Sean question. I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, he's reasonably sure.
He's
'Cause
reasonably
I
sure.
spoke with him this morning.
Yeah.
the problem was that when the bids came in on the building that will replace that, you know, they came in so high, we were all shocked, and he finally said that this is good, and we were able to make up the difference.
Right.
But that put the whole process behind, because we had
Right.
to build one before we redo the other.
Right.
Okay.
So Dina, I'm not sure then if,
what I would need
And-
is a new form with the request, with the dollar amount, and a little blurb about what it is, if you guys can send me that today. And then I'll make
Yes, we
the,
can. I really thought that was Sean's
Yeah.
bailiwick. I think it's outside ours to do. That's those capital construction projects. That
Yeah.
was- that was
so would
Sean's.
that be in Fund 11 then? Would that be part of capital, or is this gonna be a sheriff budget item?
it's probably in Fund 11 then, because if
mentioned-
he's handling the 911, then he'll handle this as well.
Right, right. That was our understanding when we talked to
No,
Sean.
Okay.
and Sean also mentioned something about taking it from the jail expansion budget?
Well, that's already budgeted.
Okay.
So you could do that current, and anything that's left over from the jail expansion would roll into next year.
Okay,
So if he's planning on using that money and there's enough money there, then we don't need to do anything.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
said
that's
there was
what-
like 312,000 and we took out 250, so it leaves like $62,000, something like that.
And he said as long as we had 60, we were set.
Yep.
That was his conversation with
good.
us this
Okay,
morning.
cool.
Okay.
Why don't I just check that?
Please.
And I can send an email back, but it sounds like if it's part of existing funds that we're gonna roll forward, like you were saying.
Right.
Now I understand, yeah, there's so much terminology, so.
I get it.
Yeah,
Oh, I
if it's in this budget and it's rolling forward, then you're fine.
Okay, we just want to make sure.
Yep.
Fine. The other item that I have, and I think we might have accounted for it, is the generator for the above-ground storage tank
Yep.
as a result of the fuel leak.
Mhm.
Is that accounted for?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's already been taken out of the jail expansion as well.
Okay.
And there's ample funds there.
Got it.
Yep.
But that's it for me. Bill, anything?
I don't know. Sheriff's Department have anything more they can give us?
No.
Well, every time
But thanks for asking.
every time we turn around, it's like, you guys want to fund this out of your budget?
No, I think
Yeah.
I think we've got our
Are you done?
done, yes, I think so.
As long as you're done.
Well, I'm done. I was done before this meeting.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Anyway.
But, you know, we think the formulary thing is a huge thing for all county employees, and you know, we're happy to work with everybody.
So if you're comfortable with it, yes or no?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Then I'll,
Comfortable is a pretty strong word, but.
then I'll vote okay.
Okay.
Dana would call it squishy.
Squishy, yeah.
Well, Squish comes out today.
Peanut butter.
So,
Peanut butter. Peanut butter.
so then, I guess, if the only change is gonna be for the core formulary, that tax number will be the same.
Yes.
So the only thing that's gonna change is we're gonna move some numbers around within the fund balance. We had a little bit of surplus in there, and so that's kind of sitting in there. And then we'll take from one line and we're gonna put it to the other line, net effect is 0.
Got it.
So, what we need then is just a tentative motion to tentatively accept this budget.
Tentative or a real
Tentative.
motion
No, it won't be
No.
it'll be a tentative motion.
until the 28th.
The 29th.
Okay.
29th will be your official
Okay.
motion,
Okay.
but this allows us, like the clerk said, to move forward.
We
Yes,
have to
sir.
publish, so
To publish.
If you
Right.
give us that tentative approval, we will then publish, we'll get working on that Monday.
Just
Got
need
it.
I don't know what the
official agreement.
statute says, but it seems to me to be a preliminary approval. Tentative
Yes.
means like,
Yeah, it's preliminary, you can call it tentative, you can call it preliminary, but your real
Because we
vote
don't
comes.
finalize it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
understand that, but it's preliminary.
So, yep.
Okay,
Sure.
all right then, do we have a motion?
No. So, I appreciate all the work that everybody did. Everybody worked really hard and got me up to speed, and I really appreciate it all. Still really uncomfortable with bringing the entire wage study into play for 2020. I just want to be upfront now and not surprise anybody by not voting for the budget in August. And so I I just have to say that, I think that we could have done a little bit better. Even though the amounts are small, I'm concerned about going forward with on-call pay because we do have, it's going to affect a broad number of people, and I want to get that policy in place first. The dental, I think that was a change that we could have probably found some dollars somewhere else, because a lot of people did a really good job of coming forward and getting those travel budgets down and stuff, but I think we could have picked a little bit further to do that. And of course, we've got some community partners that, of course, I wanted to cut back this year and didn't have a second on. So I just want to be upfront and not act like I'm all happy today and then on the 29th surprise anybody. So that's just kind of where I'm at. So.
I'm shocked. No, I'm not shocked. This has happened year after year. We've had one or two commissioners go along, help, pick nits from A to B, A to Z, and then at the end, when they're all done and they got pretty much what they wanted, they voted no. So I'm not shocked at all. This is a tough budget. It's tough on everybody. And everybody has contributed to this thing mightily. And I appreciate it. Am I happy with it? I'm happy it's balanced. I'm happy it's done. And I'm happy we didn't use the F word. So I will vote for it.
Do you want to comment any further?
No, that's kind of it. And I'm here 7 months, so I've gotten through my first process, and next year it'll be a little bit better, smoother.
Okay. That's my turn.
Your turn.
I'm actually happy with the budget. I think this is my third pass, by far the fastest, the smoothest, the least contentious, at least of the three that I've been through. I think Commissioner Duncan raises some valid points, but we did visit and revisit those points. And I appreciate the fact that while she disagrees, she's bringing it up today and has brought it up before and is not going to wait until the 29th to express her objection. So I do appreciate that. As far as the wage study is concerned, I think I made my points known. I've been through this before. I've seen studies conducted but never really acted upon, and we made a commitment as a board that we would proceed, and so we did. We came in, frankly, far short of the original $2.6 million that was allocated. So on a fully annualized basis, it comes in at about 2.2. And so I think that was a good effort this year. I also believe that the use of fund balance is judicious. I don't think we're anywhere near a fiscal cliff as far as fund balance is concerned. And so I'm not concerned there. As far as the community partners go, we're in an economy that's still going along very strong. I watch the business news diligently. They are looking at 4 to 6% potential wage increases this year because of the labor shortages around the country. If you look at the average wage increase that we have agreed to on a tentative basis for the county, it's coming in at about 3.4 across the board average. And so we're pretty much right within that spectrum. So I don't have any concerns there. I think, once again, this was it was a fair process. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I'm glad to see that the B budget, the operations, is down about $300,000, that we've got about a 12% decrease in the mill rate, so I think we've done a good job. And I'm ready to make a motion. So I will therefore make a motion that we, on a tentative basis, preliminarily, approve the budget for fiscal year 20 as presented today by our finance director, to include all the charts and supporting documentation, and that total budget number to be,
Let's go back.
I'm sorry, here it is, $101,635,717. End of motion.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Nay.
Chairman Philios.
Aye. Motion is carried. Public comment? Time is 9:40. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Sylvia, Nancy, everybody who participated, every department head. Thank you so much.